Okay, it's going.
Am I in it?
Alright, chapter 2. The first day. The first day on the job started out smelling like biscuits. Clem got up quietly and dressed quickly. He tucked his checkered shirt into his waist overalls, then did up the shoulder straps and ran a hand over his chest to try and calm his heart. He looked around at his cot with its blue blanket and white sheet, and beside the cot, the wooden crate that was his bedside table and bookshelf. Clem's stomach turned over, and he wished he could get back into bed, pull up the sheet, and read books all day long. He glanced over at the brown wool blanket that divided the room. Behind it, Eddie slept. Later, she'd go to school. She would read and eat dinner at her desk or in the shade of the big silver maple, and she'd play outside on the field, and all the while he'd be down the mine, under the ground, in the dark. Clem looked at the book gripped in his two hands, then he let the book drop. Crack. He glared at the heavy blanket, and then he turned and left the room. In the kitchen, Pap stood waiting for him, along with Ma and Grampy. In Pap's hands was a brand new miner's cap and lamp. He held it out and nodded. "Happy birthday, Clem," Pap said. The tan canvas cap seemed big and brutal, somehow. Something he'd wear into battle, like his boots, Red Wing number 16s, standard issue in the war. When he put on the cap, he was surprised that it fit okay. He wished he could see himself in a mirror. He took the cap off and glanced at his face in the lamp's round reflector. He could see only one eyeball and part of his nose. He ran his fingers across the nickel-plated Just Right logo and examined how the hook and braces held the lamp onto the cap's leather patch above the bill. "The carbide lamp with the daylight beam," Pap said, quoting a familiar advertisement. He was unusually chipper. "The lamp that puts daylight underground," Grampy yelled. He was part deaf and yelled everything. I thought to give you mine, but your old man would rather spend $1 and give you a brand new one all your own." Grampy began to cough. He tugged a square white handkerchief from his back pocket and lowered himself onto the kitchen chair. Pap looked proudly at the lamp in Clem's hands. "It's got a windproof cover over the tip there, Clemson," he said, speaking over Grampy's coughing. "I filled up the carbide chamber already." Clem looked past Grampy at the shelf above the front door where Pap always kept his Chapley 30-30 and a box of shells, and a couple of 2-pound tins of carbide, the familiar red, white, and blue of the Union Carbide label, or the green Shawinigan, with their warnings in big block letters. Keep dry, flammable, explosive, harmful. The words made alarms go off inside Clem's head. How could they send him down there? Harmful? Explosive? Ma leaned and kissed him on the cheek, and he turned to her. She dabbed at her eyes and smiled at him. "Have a good first day," she said. "We'll mark your birthday tonight." She wrapped 2 biscuits in a white cloth and handed him the small bundle, plus a sack of clean clothes and the dinner pail she'd packed. Pap and Clem left the house. Clem turned once and saw Ma still standing in the doorway. She waved a dish towel above her head. Clem raised his dinner pail, then turned his back on home. The air at that hour, 6:30, was cool and damp, clammy on Clem's cheeks. Clouds covered the early sun, and a chilling breeze swept fingers of mist around their legs as Clem and Pap came over the rise and then walked down into town past Miller's. Pap strode right along. He wasn't that tall, but his legs were long, and Clem had to run a few steps every little while to keep up. Pap held his head high. His thick hair, cut loose, looked like a black knit cap. "Best part of the day right here, Clemson," he said. He turned and nodded at Clem. "I've been looking forward to this day," he continued. "It's what we do, the Harding men. We're miners, and I'm pleased to have you alongside me now." Mouth full of biscuit, Clem didn't answer. He could hear that Pap was talking, his low voice ranging up and down, but he barely heard the words. Every other day of the week up until today, he'd been heading in the exact other direction. He turned and walked backward, facing up the hill toward the school. Even from here, he could see the tip-top of the great bull pine just west of school. All right, thanks for listening, team. We're going to end there for the day.